Israel's elite units have initiated limited ground raids in Lebanon following missile attacks by Hezbollah on Tel Aviv. The United States has indicated that Iran may be preparing for direct involvement, potentially launching ballistic missile strikes against Israel. This tit-for-tat escalation comes amid weeks of intense Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon, raising fears of a wider Middle Eastern conflict that could engulf both Iran and the U.S. Recent Israeli air raids targeted southern Beirut, striking areas near the Kuwaiti embassy and close to a shelter for displaced people, as reported by Lebanon's state-run national news agency. The Israeli military described these as precise strikes aimed at Hezbollah's infrastructure. Israeli forces have been conducting operations in southern Lebanon for months, uncovering Hezbollah tunnels and weapons caches. Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari announced that the findings would be presented to the international community, underscoring the seriousness of the situation. In response to the escalating violence, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for an immediate ceasefire, emphasizing the need to respect Lebanon's sovereignty and avoid an all-out war. Israeli airstrikes have claimed the lives of at least 37 people in Gaza, with reports from local medics detailing tragic losses, including women and children. 2 strikes on houses in Nuseirat, a refugee camp, resulted in 13 fatalities, while a strike on a school sheltering displaced families in Gaza City killed at least 7. Further attacks in Rafah and Khan Yunis added to the death toll, with footage emerging of a burned-out vehicle following an airstrike on a car in Khan Yunis. Amid rising tensions, the United States has imposed additional sanctions on Israeli settlers involved in violence against Palestinians in the West Bank, specifically targeting the Hilltop Youth, labeled a violent extremist group. This move reflects the U.S. commitment to curbing escalating violence that threatens the interests of both Israelis and Palestinians. Meanwhile, Hamas has claimed responsibility for targeting Israeli military assets in southern Gaza. As tensions rise, the U.S. Embassy in Israel has issued a shelter-in-place directive for government employees amid concerns that Iran may soon launch a ballistic missile attack on Israel, heightening fears of regional instability. The Punjab government has imposed Section 144(6) in Faisalabad, Bahawalpur, and Miawali, banning public gatherings as the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party prepares for rallies protesting the imprisonment of its founder, Imran Khan. PTI's protests are also aimed at addressing the Election Commission's delays in implementing a Supreme Court verdict regarding reserved seats and advocating for judicial independence. Despite government restrictions, PTI leaders, including Khan, are calling for nationwide demonstrations, particularly in Miawali, Faisalabad, and Bahawalpur. In other news, a massive fire at godowns near Hawke's Bay caused significant damage, estimated in millions of rupees. The fire, fueled by flammable materials, required specialized foam for firefighting efforts, as officials struggled to contain it throughout the day. On a more positive note, Pakistan's annual inflation rate has dropped to a 44-month low of 6.9%, attributed to a decrease in non-perishable food prices and a favorable base effect. This decline allows the central bank to consider multiple interest rate cuts to stimulate economic growth. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif praised his economic team for this milestone, emphasizing the government's commitment to providing relief to the public amid ongoing challenges of poverty and unemployment. Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance are set to clash in the only vice presidential debate before the November 5 election. As the liberal governor of Minnesota, Walz, 60, and the conservative Ohio senator, Vance, 40, represent starkly contrasting views despite both claiming roots in America's Midwest. Tensions are expected to run high during the 90-minute debate at CBS Broadcast Center in New York, especially with personal jabs likely to surface. Walz has criticized his opponents as weird, while Vance has faced backlash for derogatory comments about Democrats. Both candidates will advocate for their respective presidential nominees, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, who plans to provide live commentary on social media. Despite Harris' previous debate success, political analysts caution that vice presidential debates rarely impact election outcomes. Walz aims to introduce himself to a wider audience while focusing on issues like immigration and the economy, challenging Vance on his controversial remarks and military record. Vance, on the other hand, will likely press Walz on his governance during the 2020 Minneapolis riots and question the Biden-Harris administration's policies.